Richard Widmark once confessed that one of the most difficult roles of his career was playing a vicious racist bigot, delivering lines so cruel and inhumane that he later admitted they stayed with him long after the cameras stopped rolling. Yet that discomfort revealed something essential about Widmark: he believed acting carried moral weight. For him, performance was not just about realism, but responsibility. That belief shaped not only his work on screen, but also his judgments of the people around him. Widmark was not merely another face from classic Hollywood. He was one of the defining forces of its so-called golden age, an actor whose performances carved fear, tension, and unsettling truth into the screen. His villains were terrifying because they felt real, grounded in human weakness rather than theatrical excess. But behind his formidable reputation lay a private reckoning. Before his death, Widmark quietly revealed a list of people he deeply despised, figures he believed embodied the darkest instincts of Hollywood's most celebrated era. These were not obscure names or personal rivals. They were power brokers, icons, and untouchables, men the world had worshipped for decades. Widmark's reflections were not driven by bitterness or jealousy. They were, by his own measure, a final warning. A reminder that the golden age often shined brightest on behavior that deserved far more scrutiny. At the top of that list stood John Wayne. Widmark never forgot the humiliation. If there was one man whose presence could instantly freeze him, it was Wayne, not because Wayne lacked talent, but because he represented the unchecked authority Widmark despised more than anything in Hollywood. Their conflict ignited during the preparation of The Alamo, 1960, a project John Wayne did not merely star in, but ruled. Wayne was the producer, the unquestioned authority, the man no one challenged. When Widmark's name surfaced for the role of Jim Bowie, Wayne dismissed it publicly. In front of the crew, without hesitation, he delivered a line that sounded casual but cut deeply: "You're not big enough to play Jim Bowie." For Widmark, the message was unmistakable. This was not about performance or suitability. It was about dominance. The Alamo was Wayne's kingdom, and Widmark was being deliberately reminded of his place. Widmark did not argue. He responded quietly with 2 words: "I will be." That restrained defiance proved far more dangerous than confrontation. When the film was released, critics did the unthinkable. Many praised Widmark's Jim Bowie as more layered, more human, and ultimately more compelling than Wayne's own performance. Wayne never acknowledged it publicly. From that moment on, the relationship went cold. Widmark later clarified that his resentment was not personal, but philosophical. He believed Wayne used power to silence rather than elevate. In Widmark's world, authority should protect the craft, not suffocate it. From then on, he avoided Wayne entirely: no shared projects, no praise, no public recognition. To Widmark, Wayne became proof that in Hollywood's golden age, talent did not always win. Power did. If Wayne symbolized domination, Elia Kazan represented betrayal. The rupture between Widmark and Kazan did not unfold slowly. It happened in a single moment, the moment Kazan chose to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee in the early 1950s. Hollywood at the time was drowning in fear. Careers vanished overnight. Scripts were burned. Friendships became liabilities. Everyone understood the unspoken rule: keep your head down, protect one another, survive together. Kazan broke that code by naming fellow artists as communists. To Widmark, that decision erased everything that had come before. Kazan was not merely a director to him, but a collaborator, someone Widmark believed understood the sacred contract between artists. Whatever happened outside the studio, loyalty inside it was non-negotiable. When Kazan testified, that contract shattered. Widmark's response was immediate and irreversible. He did not rage publicly or posture on talk shows. Instead, he erased Kazan from his world. Friends noticed Widmark refusing to discuss him at all. When Kazan's name surfaced, Widmark either changed the subject or fell into silence. One associate later recalled Widmark saying flatly, "I don't work with men who sell out other men." Privately, he distilled his contempt into a line that quietly spread through Hollywood: "There are things worse than losing work. Losing your spine is one of them." To Widmark, Kazan had not simply saved his own career, he had legitimized betrayal as survival. When Kazan later defended his actions publicly, Widmark's judgment hardened. "Once you justify it," he told a friend, "you'll do it again." Years later, when Kazan received an honorary Academy Award in 1999, the audience famously split between applause and silence. Widmark's position had been fixed for decades. Time did not soften the act. It only confirmed the damage. Frank Sinatra earned a place on Widmark's list for a different reason: disrespect. The issue was never jealousy. It was behavior. Their tension crystallized during The Detective, 1968, when Sinatra arrived with the confidence of an untouchable icon. He showed up late, shortened rehearsals, and pushed scenes to be wrapped quickly. To Sinatra, efficiency meant control. To Widmark, it meant cutting corners. The contrast was stark. Widmark arrived early, script marked, blocking memorized, prepared to repeat takes until the scene worked. Sinatra relied on charm and authority, expecting the set to bend around him. It did, until Widmark withdrew. There were no arguments, no theatrics, just a visible shift. Later, Widmark summarized his judgment with surgical precision: charm is not commitment. He believed Sinatra treated acting as another appointment rather than an obligation. In Widmark's world, that was unforgivable. He denied Sinatra the one currency he valued most: respect. Marlon Brando, by contrast, represented chaos disguised as genius. On paper, Widmark and Brando should have been allies, serious actors, intimidating reputations, intense presence. But Widmark recoiled from Brando's methods. Brando refused to memorize lines, relied on cue cards hidden across sets, improvised without warning, and forced everyone else to chase his rhythm. Hollywood called it brilliance. Widmark called it disruption. To him, acting was a discipline owed to the story and to fellow performers. Brando's approach shifted the burden onto everyone else. Widmark's rejection was quiet but absolute. Finally, there was Kirk Douglas, the ego Widmark refused to share the frame with. Douglas did not wait for moments, he took them. He pushed dialogue louder, stretched emotional beats, and dominated framing. Widmark responded not by escalating, but by staying controlled. The contrast made Douglas's intensity look excessive. Widmark declined future projects without drama. In his eyes, overpowering others was not strength, it was insecurity. Widmark's list was not a hit parade of villains, but a moral ledger. To him, Hollywood's golden age was tarnished not by outsiders, but by insiders who confused power with greatness. His warnings remain unsettlingly relevant, and perhaps that was his final performance of all. While Part 1 revealed the names Richard Widmark could never forgive, Part 2 exposes the moral framework behind those judgments. Widmark was not cataloguing personal grudges or professional rivalries. He was condemning a culture, one that rewarded dominance, excused indulgence, and confused power with greatness. To Widmark, Hollywood's golden age was not merely an artistic triumph, it was a moral testing ground, and too many of its most celebrated figures failed. At the center of Widmark's philosophy was discipline. He believed acting was not an act of self-expression, but of responsibility, to the script, to fellow performers, and to the audience. Fame, in his view, did not grant exemption from that duty. This belief placed him fundamentally at odds with an industry that increasingly treated stars as untouchable assets rather than accountable collaborators. What unified the men on Widmark's list was entitlement. John Wayne wielded authority as ownership, turning sets into personal kingdoms. Elia Kazan legitimized betrayal by framing fear as necessity. Frank Sinatra relied on privilege and charm to bypass preparation. Marlon Brando transformed unpredictability into myth. Kirk Douglas equated domination with intensity. Each was rewarded. Each was protected. And each, to Widmark, represented a different way Hollywood taught powerful men they were above consequence. Widmark's rejection of Marlon Brando was especially revealing. While Hollywood celebrated Brando's refusal to memorize lines as revolutionary, Widmark saw it as a redistribution of labor disguised as genius. Directors adjusted. Co-stars adapted. Entire productions bent to accommodate one man's process. To Widmark, discipline was respect made visible. Chaos, no matter how celebrated, was still chaos, and it burdened everyone else. The same logic shaped his response to Kirk Douglas. Douglas did not disrupt through disorder, but through force. He seized emotional space, amplified delivery, and dominated framing. Widmark refused to compete on those terms. By remaining controlled, he exposed excess without confrontation. His restraint became a quiet indictment of a system that rewarded volume over balance. Elia Kazan's betrayal cut deeper. By naming colleagues before the House Un-American Activities Committee, Kazan transformed fear into justification. Widmark believed that once loyalty was surrendered for survival, trust within the industry was permanently damaged. Time did not soften this conviction. To Widmark, ethical failure did not expire with age, it endured. Frank Sinatra's offense was smaller in scale but no less significant. His casual disregard for rehearsal and punctuality signaled an assumption that his status outweighed collective effort. Widmark responded not with anger, but withdrawal. Respect, he believed, was not automatic. It was earned through commitment. Taken together, Widmark's judgments form a critique of Hollywood itself. The Golden Age, he believed, did not decay because of outsiders, but because insiders learned that power could replace principle. His refusal to forget was not bitterness, it was preservation. A warning that artistry without ethics is hollow, and that greatness, without accountability, is a lie. Part 3 brings Widmark's warning into sharper focus. His judgments were never about settling scores, they were about preserving standards. In an industry built on illusion, Widmark insisted on accountability. He understood that talent, when protected from consequence, corrodes into entitlement. Hollywood's golden age, for all its brilliance, rewarded men who learned how to dominate systems rather than serve stories. Widmark's refusal to forget was therefore an ethical stance. Memory, to him, was resistance. By remembering betrayal, excess, and abuse of power, he rejected the industry's habit of rewriting history in the name of nostalgia. His silence toward certain names was not bitterness but boundary, an assertion that greatness requires responsibility. In today's climate of reassessment, Widmark's perspective feels prescient. He anticipated a moment when myth would be questioned and behavior scrutinized. His legacy endures not through spectacle, but through principle, a reminder that artistry without integrity is empty, and that true respect is earned, never inherited.